And we're live. You're listening to the Hashgraph Enthusiasts Show.
Hosted by Brandon Davenport, aka It's Brandon D.
Well, hello, Hashgraph Enthusiasts, HBAR. I would say another week, but it's the last week for now. Imagine most people saw my post on Monday. I put out a post, as kind of the top of the show here, the last episode for now. So obviously what that means is, Hashgraph Enthusiasts is going on a hiatus. And this is the last episode. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about why, kind of what's going on. And of course, a bunch of people have been asking me questions about it, ranging from what are you doing? Why are you putting the show on pause? There's a lot of questions people have, so I'll answer those. But I don't think I don't think this is going to be a 2-hour ordeal. So, but it's a special episode. I think that, there's a little bit of reflection. There's some learnings. There's all sorts of different stuff. So appreciate everybody tuning in. We'll dive into it. But so all in all, maybe I'll start off with just kind of, where we're at. I mean, things are really changing in this ecosystem. And when I say ecosystem, right, Hedera, HBAR, the HBAR community, Hedera has been a thing now for over 6 years, right? And it's been a crazy journey for a lot of people. And we've seen a lot of problems. We've seen a lot of failures. We've seen a lot of pitfalls, but also too, when I really look at things, it's pretty incredible what this community has accomplished. I think that a lot of the problems that this network is going through is stuff that other networks have gone through before. It's all about kind of how we overcome it. And really what's been on my mind over the last couple months is just, trying to pull back a little bit, It's hard sometimes in the technology industry and especially in the crypto industry, because a week feels like a lifetime. It's hard sometimes to get that higher vantage point, get that higher view and kind of see the full picture, right? And so I've kind of been doing that a little bit over the last few months. And I've been doing it, I think, because you just kind of feel the ground moving under you right now, right? Whether it's just in the world in general, in the technology industry and crypto, and especially in the Hedera ecosystem, it feels like so many things are shifting. And I think a frustrating part of it is, a lot of folks kind of, I think I can speak for most people, is a lot of people don't really know what's causing it or what it is. Is it good? Is it bad? We don't know. But I really take a look at kind of what I do know. And what I do know is that there are a growing number of incredible people building on this network. There's a lot of great people at these different organizations that are doing important work. And reflecting over the last few months, as you kind of start thinking about, where's my place? What am I doing? How am I bringing value? Because when you have where the opportunity lies in the value you bring, especially in times like this. And I know it's hard times in this industry, but companies like Microsoft and Apple were founded during recessions. there's great sayings, such as you can't sharpen a knife on velvet, right? Or diamonds are formed under stress and pressure. And so you think about the times that we're in, and from just a crypto perspective, again, technology perspective, when you're at the bottom, right? When you're in the valley, that's really where the success is cultivated. That's where the magic happens. And so we find ourselves there, and you kind of think, where can I bring the most value? And so, that's kind of where it comes from. And I probably can speak for a lot of people working in this ecosystem. I'm spread really thin. And I think that there have been a lot of good people that have left this ecosystem because, there isn't enough at the table to go around, and this is a situation that I think a lot of, networks, startups, sectors of the technology industry finds itself in from time to time. And it's the winners that really are able to kind of navigate that. And I think that that's really where opportunity lies, right? There's another great saying of, problems are opportunities and workflows, and you kind of have to look at it that way. And that's kind of how I've been looking at it. So pulling back, seeing the bigger picture, and really kind of thinking about my place in the ecosystem and other people's places in the ecosystem. It's about where are we most effective, and taking stock in all the great things that have happened and taking advantage of those things. And so, to put it in short, I'm incredibly optimistic about this ecosystem. In some ways more so than ever. Again, because of the nature of these problems, it's really how you look at things. And so that's kind of, what's brought me to the decision. And I mean, the other thing is you really look at even just the last couple weeks, I'm just seeing so many signals that there's so much change happening from the very top of the Hedera organization down to the smallest project in the ecosystem. There is this sense of change. Now, again, there's many arguments to go back and forth, whether it's good or bad, but in a environment that has felt very stagnant, feeling this kind of energy and these sparks going off, something's happening, right? It's time to go with the flow. It's time to change as well. And I'm not going to dive into the news today, because I want to talk a little more about this show and kind of what, where I'm at in the ecosystem. Kind of sign off, an official sign off for a little bit. But for the news, I want to give a quick shout out to the HBAR Bulls show and Genfinity with their news outlet and podcasts and spaces and stuff. There is no shortage of great programming in this ecosystem now. I remember when I started the show, I don't know, I might have been one of the only shows. This was before Twitter Spaces even existed. This was before anything like that. I was on Clubhouse, and seeing kind of how the media landscape in Hedera has grown, we're now, there's no shortage on news outlets to get updates from. So I'm going to be watching those shows. And I know that the HBAR Bull show has his on Friday. So that's a great place to get the news. That's where I'm going to get the news. And I encourage people to go check that out. And before I really dive into it, if anybody has any questions, leave them in the comments. We're streaming live on YouTube and LinkedIn and X. So if you have a question for me about the Hashgraph Enthusiasts kind of winding down for a bit, leave a comment and I'll answer your question on the show. Basically, yeah, this is the news, is the Hashgraph Enthusiast show is going on a hiatus, which basically means that I'm not going to be doing these live episodes for the foreseeable future. And it's a big change. It might be a surprise to a lot of people. And I think that when I put out the announcement on Monday, I think that a lot of people were kind of like, oh no, what does this mean? Like, is Brandon, stepping back, or what's going on? So basically it's actually pretty normal stuff. When you have a long running show like Hashgraph Enthusiasts has been running for years, the format sometimes maybe can get a little stale. It can maybe get a little bit repetitive. It's hard to keep things fresh. And very often you'll find this with shows is they take a break, right? Whether it's a break for a month, a year, whatever it is, you have to find that rejuvenation, that freshness, especially as a host of the show. And I mean, I'm the only one doing Hashgraph Enthusiasts. So you hold a lot, right? And you create that space to kind of refresh things. So partially it's that as well. And so it's honestly just a pretty normal thing for shows, especially if you're almost 150 episodes in. It's pretty normal. And a fun, well, maybe not a fun statistic, but a statistic is 90% of podcasts don't make it to 5 episodes, right? And of that, 90% of those don't make it to 20 episodes. So there's something to be said about, this show and the other shows that we see in this ecosystem, how consistent things are. Although Hedera might still be a smaller community, a smaller ecosystem, there's a lot of dedication here. And I think that's really what it's all about for me. And also too, on the theme of kind of pulling back a little bit, this live show, this is kind of just a part of the Hashgraph Enthusiast brand, right? Like we also have 1,500 members in our X community. We've, and even myself, the things that I post, the ways I engage, like the live show is a part of what I do. Now, of course, it's the biggest part, but it means that there's space for more new things going forward from like just myself, content perspective. I want to make it clear you're not going to be seeing less of me, right? You're not going to be seeing less of me in the ecosystem. And the other thing too, which is nice, is it's also lined up where enough contributions have been sent to the show, right? You always hear me talking about, hey, support the show, send funds to the show's wallet, this and that. Enough has been sent in contributions over the years to cover expenses for the show, right? Because it takes money to, buy this equipment and all these different things. And, the show has been able to be community supported all this time. And so that's just incredible. It just wraps that portion of it up really, really well. And I think that in the bigger picture too, I think that to grow this ecosystem, I think that the individuals in this ecosystem have to grow as well. And I think personally, that's what this is about for me is growing, right? And I think that if we can have, an opportunity, if other folks can get the opportunity to really think about things, there are so many different ways we can grow the ecosystem and grow inside the ecosystem. And it's tough. Growing is they call it growing pains. I'm going through a growing pain right now. But I'm doing it with hundreds of my closest friends in this ecosystem. And I want to make it clear that my intention with this is solely to increase my involvement in the ecosystem, right? A lot of people are wondering, like, are you leaving? Whatever. That's really the goal. Now, a big kind of moment for me was starting as director of communications for Hgraph, right? I've talked about Hgraph on the show before. Hgraph is a company in the Hedera ecosystem focused on like the data space, right? Mirror nodes, all those different types of things. And that work has really, really, really been rewarding. And it's opened my eyes to a lot of critical areas in this ecosystem where I'm needed. I think doing that type of work and working much more closely with developers and builders, it's eye-opening stuff. And so that definitely was a factor in this decision, is realizing, I'm very needed in some very important areas. And there's initiatives that I'm working on that are going to have a large impact on this ecosystem, both inside of Hgraph and outside of Hgraph. And again, this is really just about focusing my efforts. And so really what it boils down to is, like, for years, this show was the best way that I could bring value to this ecosystem. And I've come to realize it's no longer the case, right? There's other ways that I can bring more value in new areas. That's what this has always been about. So, you know, if you can get this, you know, it's been a really hard decision, but also a really easy decision. You know, that makes sense. So that's really the news, right? And that's what this is all about. That's what this announcement is about. That's what this episode is about. That's what this last episode is about. It's about just making a decision personally, that I think is going to impact this ecosystem, more positively than I can do with the show. Now, there's questions that people have, of course, in my DMs and all over the place. And I'm going to, you know, I've been collecting a couple of those. And yeah, if you have any questions and you're watching the show, leave a comment in the stream. I'll answer questions after. So first question, I know I already kind of mentioned this, but this is like the big one. So Hashgraph Enthusiasts is over. Are you leaving Hedera? Brandon, are you leaving Hedera? No, I am not. I want to make that clear. You know, the whole point of this is just to increase my involvement and work in the ecosystem. And like I mentioned, I work full time at Hgraph. There are a lot of people who depend on me, and this is where my focus needs to be. There's a lot of important stuff happening. And again, there's this huge X community. Like, the show is just a part of Hashgraph Enthusiasts. This isn't about Hashgraph Enthusiasts ending, you know, the movement, the community. This live show is just a component of it that's got to go on a break. And I'm still going to be doing content. I'm still going to be doing all sorts of things. You know, I love doing interviews. I love doing all these types of things, you know, and you just want to do a really good job at it. So you just got to take some time to refresh. You got to create that space for it. And the other thing is, there's a lot of people that want me to be on their show as a guest. And a lot of times I just can't, because this show takes a lot of time to do. And so I'm also looking forward to contributing to other shows and being a part of that as well, switching things up a bit. I just think that that's going to be really good as well. But again, it's just about focus. The other question is, you know, why now? Like, why stop the show now? Like, we're on the verge of a bull market. The show could blow up. You might miss out on that. And to be honest, I really, really, really enjoy doing these types of shows during like really hard times. It feels more important. I think the conversations are like very real, and you learn more, right? I think you learn more when things are not going well. You build stronger connections. You form better ideas. You make better plans. And doing a show in a bull market is a different beast. And to be honest, you know, a big reservation for me was like, man, if I spin down this show, like, is there going to be some kind of void? And there isn't. There's so, like I mentioned, there's the HBAR Bulls show, there's Genfinity. There's so many great shows and content creators and stuff that are just going to run with it. And also it's easy for me to start the show again. Like, that's the other thing is, you know, I've done this many times and it's easy for me to do that. So it's not closing a door, right? It's just leaving the room to go explore some other stuff. And you know, there's, you know, where I'm really needed. So that's really, you know, to answer that question, you know, it's just time. And also too, it's, you know, it's easily reversible. So it's not like the end of the world. It just feels right. And this kind of, you know, there's the other, you know, follow-up question. It's like, but you know, the show's taking off. Why not press on? Why stop the rocket? You know, because yeah, the show is growing. We started, you know, on Clubhouse for 10 people. You know, now it's like YouTube, X, LinkedIn. It's live video. It's guests. It's this. It's that. It's news. It just keeps kind of snowballing and going, and it's incredible. But you know, doing live programming like this is really, 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 really demanding. You know, and I've been doing it for a long time, and I've done other shows like this. I've been in a, you know, touring rock and roll band. I've been performing for a long time, for over a decade. And you know, like I said, you got to create time and space for things to refresh. It's just a natural part of the process. And also too, having a show like this, to be honest, like, does have its downsides. You know, I think sometimes in the ecosystem, it makes me, less approachable. Especially for smaller builders. You know, sometimes I think when I enter a room or go on a call or someone reaches out, I feel too big, or I don't know how to explain it. It's weird. It's when you have a show like this, when you're a content creator or whatever, it makes you less approachable for the little guys, like people starting out that, maybe are nervous, and also too, maybe those types of things. It's just, it makes you less approachable. And so I think that it's really important for me to be a super approachable person right now, for the ecosystem, because, I work with a lot of people. I know a lot of stuff. I've been there, done that. And there is just a bunch of new people coming into this ecosystem. And I'm this like quote unquote influencer guy that maybe people, I want to be very approachable for people. And that's that's definitely a downside of the show. It's a high profile. And it's less about what I'm leaving on the table. A lot of people are like, oh, you're leaving so much on the table. It's more about realizing there's so much more that I can bring to other tables in the ecosystem, right? There's so much more going on. There's so many bigger, more important things happening that I should be focusing on in the Hedera ecosystem. I think that, maybe as an analogy, when people go like, why stop the rocket of this show going up? When you got a rocket, and you're going up higher, a stage of the rocket has to fall back down to earth. It's got to separate. You can't continue with the full rocket. So that's part of this. Is also this show it's been this first stage of my rocket into this ecosystem. And it's got to fall back down to earth. And it feels like the right time because, these days when the rocket first stage falls back down to earth, it doesn't blow up anymore. It gets caught by the launch pad. So I think we're going to be okay. And the last major question I get asked is about this is, do I have any regrets about putting the show on hiatus? And I'd be lying if I said no. Of course I do. I love doing this show, and the people I get to talk to, the audience, I really, I'll miss it, because doing a live show is very different. It's real time. Anything can happen. One of the best things about performing live, whether, you're in a band or doing live programming, like I used to do shows on, like local cable or whatever, it's fun doing it live because it could fall apart at any minute. And I think that's why people tune into live stuff, is because that there is a possibility that what you're watching, something could go wrong. And what I've learned over the years is that's when it gets really exciting and interesting. Like when something goes wrong, when something falls apart, that's really when you start to get real. That's really when you start to get to the bottom of stuff. And there's been so many iconic moments on this show where shit's just broken or stuff's gone wrong or just unexpected people have called in. And those have been my favorite moments. That's you. And you can't do that if you're not doing it live. The other thing is like when I, for an example, like when I go to conferences, people will come up to me and they'll be like, hey, Hashgraph Enthusiasts. They'll like show me their phone. They've got, the show in their podcasts and they talk about how they watch the show all the time and they want to ask me about things and they're just happy to meet me. It just creates this instant connection. That's a really cool thing about doing a show like this. And I mean, there are people that have been listening to this show every single week, literally for years live, right? Like think about that. There's people that listen to this show and have been listening to this show and I see them, right? Whether I'm on Twitter Spaces or see them in the comments here, there are people that have listened to this show since, October 2021, right? That's crazy to me. I mean, that to me really means a lot. It's a very loyal audience. And the show means a lot to people, So I think a lot of people will miss it. And I think that my experiences over the last 5 months, especially, it's just shown me that there's just really important work to do where I'm needed. And like I was saying, this show has up until this point been the best way for me to bring value to the ecosystem, and it's just no longer the case. But that's exciting, right? Because I think that sometimes changing paths quickly, making sacrifices like this, and applying a sharp focus, that's what really makes all the difference. Those are the qualities that, I mean, I want on the show about like Hedera is slow and they need to do this, they need to do that. And, you know, I criticize heavily, you know, those different types of things. And when I reflect on that, I go, well, what if I do those things, right? What if I really think about what do people really want and need from me in this ecosystem? And I take that mentality upon myself that I want to really see forced upon Hedera and the leadership. That's really what it's all about is, okay, I need to do those things. You know, if that's what I'm preaching, I need to practice it. So that's really what this is about too. And, you know, I think that the next thing is kind of, you know, what's, you know, people are like, well, what's next? You know what I mean? Like, you know, so the show's going on pause. It's just the live show. Hashgraph Enthusiasts, the brand, the idea is still going strong. Brandon's going to still be tweeting and doing content and all this kind of stuff. It's all good. He's not leaving. He's just doing more, blah, blah, blah. So what's next? Like, what's going on? That's what people are asking me now. And so this is the funny thing is my, you know, what's next for me? It started months ago. And you've seen a lot of it, right? We've got the, you know, there's like the Hedera revenue dashboard. I built that with Tyler at Hgraph and designed that. And there's so many other things too that like have been, you know, I've been able to kind of push forward. There's other initiatives and stuff. I got to be careful because I know I can't talk about a lot of it, but it's less about me deciding what to do next. And this is more about what do I focus on? Right? Where's my focus? That's really what this is about. It's really clear what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm doing it already. I just need to do more of it. It's, you know, just turning the volume knob up on what's important. I think it's going to move the needle on some stuff. And I honestly really love it. You know, just as much as I love this show and I'll miss it, I love the work that I'm doing. I love the people I'm working with. A lot of the people I work with watch this show. A lot of the people I work with are guests on this show, it turns out. And I want to work with them. I think the stuff that is being built by startups and developers in this ecosystem is going to move mountains. And I want to be a part of that and be more of a part of that. I don't want to be just on here talking about it. You know, I want to much more be right in the trenches with everybody. And really my main focus, if I can really drill down on it, is I'm focused on this other half of the network, right? And I've talked about this on the show before. This is Hgraph's business, the data space, you know, and Hgraph is a company that has multiple hardware mirror nodes in different places. We have all the data for the network. We provide that data to all sorts of different projects and enterprises that we work with. We're developing all sorts of different tooling and applications and products and services, and we're growing. And it's in a space that people really never really saw success. And, you know, Hgraph has defied the odds. And I think that what we've really been able to do is, you know, at the beginning of this year, nobody cared about mirror nodes. Nobody knew what they were about. Nobody really understood or cared about or were aware of the data side of Hedera, right? We always talk about putting transactions in, right? TPS, how much stuff's going in the network, what's going in the network, blah, 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 blah. But we never really talked about, well, how do we get it out of the network? How do we know what's happening? How do we know what the truth is? How do we know how much revenue Hedera is generating? How do we know, like, what's going on? You know, and so that's been a challenge is really highlighting to people there is this literally another whole half of this network that has largely been ignored. And so over this year, we've taken that half of the network from something nobody really cared about or knew about to now, you know, Hgraph is the leader in that space. And people are so focused now and so interested and curious and getting so much value from the data on this network, from tools that are being developed that Hgraph's infrastructure is providing, right? And so that's been a key challenge, is seeing this incredibly important aspect of this network, and figuring out how to make it important, like how to get people to realize how important it is and develop it. And so that's really like, so much of my focus has been in that area. And the other thing too is it's so much learning for me. I'm doing things I've never done before. And so that's really what it's all about. And when we talk about value, success, growth, there it is. There's something serious and something exciting happening that I want to be a part of. And it's just one of many things, right? That isn't this show. And like I said, I can do a show anytime I want. But right now there's important places I need to be. And at the core, it's just about really dedicating myself to the developer community on Hedera, the builder community. I'm definitely not it's not that I'm not a developer, but I'm not like a highly technical person. But what I've learned is that my skill set in communications, and especially in my role as director of communications at Hgraph, it's a missing part to a lot of things, right? Because a lot of times the problems we see in this network are there's two parts to the problem, right? There's the technical issue, but then there's the people issue. And I'm really good at the people issue. I'm really good at bringing people together. I'm really good at getting a vision together of getting people behind something, of driving something forward. And it's a missing piece. And, I find myself to be maybe a little bit of a rare breed in a Web3 ecosystem. And so you just have to understand where you're needed. And if you really love this network, you got to go where you're most needed, right? And I'm not super needed here right now. There's so many other great shows. There's other places where I'm badly needed. And I'm working with so many cool people, and there's other things too. Like my focus is also on all sorts of different working groups and alliances that I, run operations for, even supporting the Hyro initiative, and supporting the technical steering committee. There's the Wallet Connect initiative, right? With Rion, that needs a ton of work, and that is going to require some of my full attention to make happen and do my part. These are just really important things that, need to get done, but also I have to dedicate my efforts to making sure people are aware about it, make sure things are communicated properly, make sure that everyone's brought along for the ride, that they're looped in, that there's transparency, and really set the standard for what that looks like for people. So that's really, when it comes to what's next for me, it's already happening. And it's just about, where do I put my focus? And, I think that's what it's, I want to be less of a talking head. I want to be spending, my days supporting developers. I want to help these founders and startups grow the ecosystem. I want to be more available and approachable for people. But at the same time, don't expect to see less of me. I'm going to be posting all the time. I'm going to be doing all sorts of content. I'm going to be giving my hot takes on stuff. You will not be seeing less of me. I can guarantee you that. And so really, I think that when I reflect on stuff, it's been 3 years, and I realize that it's been almost exactly 3 years, of the show. And, I started the show on Clubhouse. If people remember Clubhouse, I started the show on Clubhouse, doing the show for 10 people, tuning in every week. There were 10 people that were listening, and it grew and it grew and it grew. And now it's, thousands of listeners, multiple platforms, amazing guests, iconic interviews, and probably some of the most important moments in the ecosystem. It's so cool to be a part of all that stuff. Right. And now I want to be a part of it in a deeper, I think more meaningful way, going forward in a way that I can do. And I think that sometimes, for things to get to the next level, you just have to create that space. The first step is, it's like addition by subtraction. I'm not going to be able to take things to the next level in this ecosystem unless first I kind of take something away, right? And create that space. And this show takes a lot of space, and it's important, but not as important right now. And I think that the Hedera community has given me so much. And I'm going to be able to do a lot with that. Like, this show has, given me so much. It's created a career for myself in this space. Not many people can say that. Not many people can say they work full time in the Hedera ecosystem. And I value that every day. And because I've been given so much, it just means I have so much more to bring. So it's just about, where am I bringing it? What's going to be most effective? And that's crystal clear to me now. And it's personal growth. And it's just, again, remembering that this is not the end of anything. This is just the beginning of a new chapter for myself. And I think, again, like I was talking about at the top of the show, for the whole ecosystem, we can all feel it, whether we know what's going on or why or not. We can all, as HBARbarians, we can all feel it right now. In an ecosystem that has felt very stagnant and still, especially recently, there's just there's this shifting that's happening. There's this vibration that's happening. And you just got to know when to start moving, when to really start diving in, and, not be stagnant yourself. So that's really what it's about. Now, before I dive into some questions in the chat, well, maybe I'll just see if there's any questions in the chat. Let me see. This is true. This is true. Pluto, this is true. Zildjian, appreciate you. Yeah, I'm going to miss doing the show, and you're an individual that tunes in every week, so I really appreciate you. Dave says, I was in before September of 2019 when they went live. Seems like 10 years ago against the tides. I'm hanging in, all in. Yeah, there's an attitude here. I think that you do kind of have to be crazy enough to think this is going to work, Richard says, I'm optimistic, but in truth, it's been like walking through, I don't know what that word is. Hedera's activity has to pay for dividends at some point. I think you mean staking rewards, but you have to be a believer at the moment. Yeah, I mean, I can empathize with that sentiment. That's what it's all about. You kind of just have to hang in there. Captain Jack, HBARk, 1,000 HBARk for the show. Appreciate you. No man, always tuning in with a crying emoji and a wave emoji. This is not goodbye. I'll be seeing you every day. Don't worry. Let's see what's going on. Hashburn asks, are you leaving? No, I'm not leaving. Yeah, so there's some questions. Now, maybe I'll share some final thoughts. So, I just want to say a massive, heartfelt thank you to everyone listening and watching to the Hashgraph Enthusiasts show over the years. Again, doing live programming like this for years, is very difficult and demanding. But the Hedera community, it's made it an absolute pleasure. It's great. I'll very much miss it. I've never worked so hard on something and had it not feel like work at all. So that's huge. And again, this is all about the singular goal of me increasing my impact and involvement in the ecosystem. This is just a next step. And just to touch on this again, I mean, the work that I'm doing at Hgraph is probably going to be the best of my career. Tyler McDonald, the CEO of Hgraph, and my boss, he's created a wonderful company through, I would say, like literal sheer determination just to solve hard problems in the ecosystem, and really like this unwavering dedication to builders. He's the kind of person that you bring a crazy idea to or an impossible task to, and it's exciting. He's like, great, and it's very refreshing. And I think that everybody should give him a follow. And you know, he's a secret weapon of this ecosystem. I don't think a lot of folks, follow him. So I think that people should follow him. But yeah, Hgraph is a startup success story in the making. I talk about a lot on this show. I know probably every startup in this ecosystem, and Hgraph is one of those. So it's a privilege to be working at Hgraph. We're solving hard problems. I'm all in on that. And I would say to everybody at tables everywhere in the ecosystem with not enough to go around, I'm coming in full force. You know, I'm going to do whatever I can to bring more to these tables because it's time to feast. Tides are changing. Things are going on. I'm ramping up. I'm not ramping down. And, you know, on this show, like I said, I've highlighted problems in this ecosystem and I have championed the people solving these problems. And it's just, it's time to dive in myself. You know, I've seen enough. You know, I'm going in. And a reminder too, I mean, don't kid yourself. There is no lack of great content and programming. Other live shows in this ecosystem, it's going to be okay, right? Your week is not going to be horrible without Hashgraph Enthusiasts, right? There's the HBAR Bull Show. There's Genfinity. Those shows have just gotten better and better and better and better. I watch them every week. Everybody else should. You'll probably see me on those shows, you know, because I might end up, you know, being like, I'd love to complain about this. So you might find me on those shows. And I just would encourage my audience to check out those shows if you don't already. Support Ryan and Brandon, continue growing their shows. And also too, there's so many other great shows popping up on X and YouTube all the time. Literally just search for, you know, HBAR or Hedera News or whatever it is. There's creators, there's hosts, there's people doing all sorts of shows all the time. So just, you know, tune into those shows, listen to those shows. It's time to, you know, explore some new stuff. You know, you got an extra 2 hours per week to fill, you know, so find some new shows. And I'll say, you know, a final word to Hedera's leadership. You know, there's still more to be done. You know, things are moving, I think, too slowly, and Hedera leadership really has to get in touch with the community to whom they depend on for their efforts, right? There is still a huge disconnect, and I think that there's still a lot of problems. And I think that the situation regarding transparency is getting worse. There's just a lot of work to be done. Now, especially the last few weeks, it's been pretty exciting. There's actually been a lot of positive news. There's been a lot of good change. I feel incredibly confident about this ecosystem. But again, I really, really hope that Hedera leadership, the board, I hope that they're feeling the heat. It is game time. And I think that Hedera's risk-averse approach to crypto has become our biggest existential risk as an ecosystem. And that's just a fact. The change has to continue, and we need it now, right? It's more transparency, more speed, more connection. It's just needed, and it's needed yesterday. So the sense of urgency couldn't be stronger than ever. I'm not going to be talking about it every week on this show. I'm going to be directly addressing it and doing the work to help make that happen, because there are so many incredible people at these organizations like Hashgraph, right? There's great people at the foundation. There's great people at the Hashgraph Association. There's great people at Hedera. There is far more good than not good. And I think that if we can stay focused, big things will happen. But that's what it requires, is focus. And we got to have speed. It's got to happen fast. So I really hope those folks are feeling the heat, because, you know, we're cooking. You know, that's what it's all about. And, you know, to HBARbarians, let's really do, you know, whatever we can to tear down walls and barriers and differences, right? Can we call competitors friends, right? Can we find signal in the noise? Can we spend our limited energy shining a light on new people doing really good stuff, versus, taking shots at trolls, wreaking havoc, right? There is a time where I know that I, hammer on Hedera and their leadership and stuff like that a lot. And I want to make a point that, there's still more to be done, but there is a time where you kind of have to flip the script and really roll up your sleeves and dive in and not to say bring on a positive mentality, but focus the energy into new places, right? I've shared all the criticisms that I want to share. And I think it was important that I do. But it's understanding now it's, you got to put the work in, every criticism I share can also be aimed at me. It's not like I'm not guilty of certain things. And despite everything, anybody that I've criticized on the show or, anything like that, it's, there's more in common than not. We're all insane people in this ecosystem, putting our heart and souls and blood, sweat, and tears into growing this and making it a success. So we disagree on how to do it. Honestly, who cares at this point? Who cares? It's just a difference of opinion, of approach at this point. That everybody from the top to the bottom all want the same thing. They want HBAR to go to the moon. They want this ecosystem to grow. They want to feel supported. They want to build their future. They want to create a career here. Everybody wants the same stuff. And there are massive disagreements on how to do it. And it's time to just, we got to put that to the side at some point, especially right now. We're on the verge of major changeovers in government in the US. There's all sorts of uncertainty in the world. The financial market's becoming more volatile. Innovation is ramping up in all sorts of areas in the tech sector. The enterprise adoption and innovation in DLT is increasing. Mergers and acquisitions are happening. A bull market is in the horizon. It's like, now's the time, right? Now is the time for collaboration and not, nipping at each other's heels all the time and saying, we're all pointing to the same destination. Let's not waste any more time arguing how to get there. Let's just get there. Let's really just kind of bring it together. That's really what it's all about. Because at the end of the day, it's our job to lead this ecosystem, right? If we really think about Hedera as decentralized, as this massive growing distributed ecosystem and technology, we're the leaders, we're the decision makers, right? The things are being moved and positioned for more power to the people, and I think that that's Hedera's desire. I think that that's our desire. I think that we all have the same goal. It's okay if we work on it in different ways. Let's just, little less toe stepping and see what we can do to kind of come together a little bit. I think that it's time to do that. And as I said, it's hard times, but this is when success happens. It's so funny. Right now, it's funny how it plays out when you actually watch it. There's the longest joke, right? You're supposed to buy low and sell high, right? And it's just so crazy to kind of see all the paper hands out there. It's like whatever asset you're invested in, it's, everything's getting rocked, especially alts, right? They're all getting rocked right now, all up and down the coin market cap charts. One day a coin is at 25, the next day it's at, 40 or whatever. It's everything's just becoming more volatile and shit, if you're holding an asset for years and now is the time that you're like, well, see ya, it's insane. You know, I think that this is what they talk about, right? This is the people that get memed on. Is if you look at the chart pull up the chart for any asset, any alternative asset, right? Because you know Bitcoin will lead the market. It always does, the different market cycles. But look at any alternative asset. You know, this is the meme happening right now. All the charts, including HBAR chart, right? Or maybe camera's flipped. It looks like this. Whoa, whoa, oh, right? And we're bottomed. Everything's bottomed. And it's the meme unfolding right in front of my eyes. People, whether they're on this network or that network or Hedera, it's like, I'm out, you know, and it's crazy. You know, it's capitulation. It's a lack of conviction. This is what happens. The meme is happening, you know, right before our eyes. And I think that, you know, I just wanted to kind of it's an observation, you know, the burnout is very real. As a difficult, if you look at, let's use a different analogy. If you look at, let's say, a tech company, right? Or a tech startup, and, you know, it's a bear market and the stock is just bottomed out and everything's, you know, whatever. It obviously causes problems. It causes disillusionment. It causes morale issues. You know, with investors, there's all sorts of problems. And it's like, that's where the riches are made. That's where the opportunity is. That's the buy low part, you know? So it always blows my mind, you know, like it's so strange. It's always about going against your best nature. It's always about being patient. It's, you know, but I think that that's part of the challenge of being invested in emerging markets and technologies and companies. Hedera is an emerging company. There is a high probability of failure of the industry, you know? And, you know, it's just the way it is. But the thing is it all depends on how you look at it. You could say there's a high probability of the internet failing. There's a high probability of, you know, the whaling industry going down. There's a high probability of oil, you know, gas, or whatever. There's a high probability for everything. And it's when the odds are against you is when you understand the more knowledge that you have, the more embedded you are in something, the more you know about something, the more you understand something, that's the edge, right? That is the opportunity. That is the upside. And so that's kind of where my brain goes is these are these moments, you know, and I'm not talking specifically about HBAR. I'm just talking about the crypto industry in general. We see this play out over and over and over again. And don't get me wrong, I'm guilty, you know, I'm guilty of buying high and selling low, you know, and it's a strange way to operate. It's a strange way to think. It's demanding, it's painful, and it's something that, like many other people in the space, HBAR holders feel, right? They're feeling this pain, this frustration, this slow moving thing that, you know, just, there's no end. And that's the disconnect. Hedera leadership, I think, just doesn't get that, how much, you know, capitulation is potentially going on with HBAR holders. And so I think that's important because I know that we don't like to talk about HBAR price, and I know that Hedera can't do that. But the reality is that, Hedera, the organization, all that kind of stuff, they have to sell HBAR to stay alive, to, keep their employees, to do the initiatives they want to do, to build out this network. So, the healthiest thing we can do is really think about that, right? And focus on the HBAR investor. What can we do to get staking rewards up? What can we do to give more opportunities to increase TVL, especially with DeFi, especially with native Hedera stablecoins, all these different types of things. What can we do to bring more transparency, to break down barriers? What can we do to bring things closer together, to bring HBAR investors closer in? Because that's just what I'm seeing. And it's the name of the game. It's the transfer of money. It's just what happens. And it's sometimes You don't even know what's going to happen. You can't even predict it, but you can feel it. There's in your gut. And it's something that creates that distance, right, between the average HBAR holder and the powers that be at Hedera. What can we do to close those gaps? I hope that this show has done its part to start closing that gap a little bit in my own way. And I think that I've closed the gap from my perspective as much as I can with this show. So I've got to use new tools, working on new things to continue that. And that's kind of what this is all about today. So let's see if there's any more questions. Oh, nice message from Josh, my good close friend in the ecosystem, the Hash Shanty Man, the Hello Future Anthem, Megamind. Legendary run with the show, brother, he says. Respect for bringing so much value to the community over the past few years. Appreciate you, man. And yeah, so many great messages in the chat. Really appreciate everything so much. Tyler's tuning in. Howdy, boss. Yeah, so that's really what it's about. And so to wrap all things up, the show is going on hiatus. Hashgraph Enthusiasts live show is going on hiatus. I am not leaving the ecosystem. I am only, becoming more insane and diving into the ecosystem more. There's more important things that I need to be focused on. You will not be seeing less of me. I will continue meme posting and shit posting and bull posting and doing all sorts of different things. You're going to see me on other shows, and it's business as usual in that front. And the live show is just a part of Hashgraph Enthusiasts. There's a giant X community, all these other things happening. So this is about a new chapter. This is about leveling up. This is about diving in more. This is about doing more. That's what this is all about. So I know that there's a lot of news. I'm not going to be covering it on this episode, but a reminder, HBAR Bull show is out on Friday. Genfinity's got a bunch of articles out. Go check those out. They're doing their shows. Ryan at Genfinity, King Solomon, he's doing great stuff. Also doing live programming too. So go check that stuff out. This has been episode 146 of Hashgraph Enthusiasts. It's the final episode for now. And I would say, if you're listening, please go check out past episodes and interviews. Like, there's a ton of incredible interviews that I've done even recently. So many great moments. It's not just news, right? There's lots of great insights. It's totally worth going back and listening to older episodes because there's so many things that we might have even forgotten about. I think might take some time coming up to go back and listen to old episodes because it's like, I think there's just like a bunch of things that maybe we've forgotten about that might, come back in unexpected ways. And there's a ton of clips and highlights, especially on YouTube. Over 150, clips and highlights and major moments and stuff from the show. So go check that out. I think there's a YouTube playlist. And you'll find the show on X, YouTube, LinkedIn, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Go back and listen to all those episodes. They're available everywhere. I'll ensure that they're available going forward. So you can always go and listen to them. Lots of really cool stuff. And make sure to continue following along. Give me a follow on LinkedIn and X and YouTube and stuff. You never know what's happening. You never know what I've got next, other than everything I've told you, but you know what I mean. And it's been a good run. 3 years, not the end, just the beginning. And really appreciate everyone tuning in, especially today. Means a lot. I put out that announcement on Monday, and cheers to you, Tata. Another individual tuning in for every episode says cheers for all the shows over the years, Brandon. Appreciate you, Tata. Mosey says, much love, Brandon. Appreciate you. When I put out that announcement on Monday that I was winding down the show, just the comments that I got on that post were just, overwhelming. Like, so much love and support. It's just, you can't not love this ecosystem. You can complain about it. You can fight in it. You can have all sorts of things happen, but like you got to love it, you know, good and the bad. It's never a dull moment. And I think it's only up from here. You know, I really think that I'm more bullish than ever on this ecosystem. There's so many exciting things happening. And I'm going to be focused on a lot of those exciting things. That's the most exciting part, you know? So, appreciate everyone tuning in. Let me do a quick calculation real quick. Let me see how many hours. If the show averages 2 hours per episode, honestly, it's 2.5 hours per episode, to be honest. 146. Oh, look at this. 365 hours. That's an hour for every day of a year, right? Pretty crazy. 146 episodes. Pretty wild stuff. Pretty crazy. 350 hours of doing this show. Well, anyways, appreciate all you guys for tuning in. This is the final episode for now of Hashgraph Enthusiasts. Go back and listen to all the previous ones. Only good stuff happening. I'm so stoked. Lots of problems to solve in this ecosystem. Lots of work to do. I'm in 1,000%. I'm here till HBAR goes to 0. Don't tell my wife that. So with that, man, for the last time, appreciate you guys. Hello future. Goodbye past.
Thanks for listening to the Hashgraph Enthusiasts show, hosted by Brandon Davenport.
Listen to past episodes and support the show at itsbrandond.com/hbar.